Well, we definitely had some convection in the area. Was able to get just a little bit of time lapse here, looking at the top of one of these weak decaying storms. You can see just a little bit of motion there, and that's what was left. Just a lot of, you can see at the very top, a little bit of anvil spreading in from the east, and off in the distance to the south, on the left side of the screen, there are some towers rising up and spreading. So some very interesting time lapse and much different compared to yesterday. Okay, checking out the weather right now. We've got return to the warm weather down south, but up in the hill country and Waco, there is a little bit of an outflow boundary. You can see that right there. Much cooler weather north of there, and there's even a little bit of a meso high. So this is where air is flowing away from the center of a dome of cold air generated by these storms. Located right there, that's where that meso high is. So essentially what we're looking at is somewhat of an outflow boundary across Texas, looking kind of like that. And these storms have developed due to a front in the area. If you look at the temperatures in South Texas, we have low 90s, contrasting very sharply with these mid-70s in Arkansas. So if we use that imaginary car drive to locate the front, well, we start out with 98 down here in South Texas. We've still got 93 around College Station and Bastrop, and then we hit 80s and 70s in Texarkana. So that's going to place the front kind of in this area right here. And you can definitely see the difference in the winds. Southerly winds south of that boundary and easterly winds to the north. And it's kind of ironic when you go to the north, dew points are a little bit higher. In fact, we've got 80 right there in the Longview area, 77, but down to the south, low 70s. Okay, so the tail end of that front goes up into the panhandle, probably up through Amarillo, kind of like that. Okay, elsewhere around the country, let's see what's going on. Finally have some cool weather there in British Columbia, upper 60s there. Also cooling down on the Northwest Territories. We have been seeing a lot of 70s and 80s this summer, and now we're finally, well, there are a few 70s holding on, but in the Yukon dropping down into the 50s. So winter is not too far away. Okay, let's check out our pressure patterns across the country. We're looking at digital atmosphere here, and I'm going to draw the isobars. And we can see we've got low pressure up in the Great Lakes area, and there it is. This is a 999 millibar low. So we've probably got a cold front, perhaps running something like that. And possibly a warm front in upstate New York. So just a preliminary look at that. That's about where I would put those fronts. And then down in the southern part of the U.S., not a whole lot going on. However, we do have a little bit of a low pressure area down in South Florida. Okay, let's go to the charts and see what's going on. Got 32 tabs open. Okay, there's our storms there in Texas along that front. The synoptic scale front kind of stretched through like that. Got a little bit of a slight risk for the Texas Panhandle there, upslope flow in that region. And let's look at the long wave pattern, because we're getting into that run-up for the eclipse here coming up Monday. So we've got a long wave trough off the west coast, kind of a medium wave ridge going, or trough going through the plains, and a medium wave ridge on the west coast right there. So we got a little bit of northwesterly flow in the plains. And wow, we've got that ridge building in very sharply all the way to the North Pole. So temperature's probably a little bit on the warm side up in the Arctic there. Okay, 250 millibar chart. This is up at about 39,000 feet, showing some very strong ridging over Florida. So we're seeing very warm temperatures in that part of the country. There's the upper level high. And we've got what looks like a polar front jet across the central U.S. That's kind of tied in with that front that we saw here in Texas. And 500 millibar flow, just showing westerly flow. And there's that trough out in California. Okay, this is a good time to check in with our viewers. And here's a look at the visible imagery while we do that. Okay, we're going to do the eclipse forecast here in a little bit. So that'll be coming up here shortly. We've got Andrew checking on the GFS forecasted cloud cover against GO16 real-time data. Models overestimating it a bit. Got Ryan Toomey's there in Florida. David Moore is with us, and Ryan says, all hands on deck, traffic pattern is full in the Atlantic. And yeah, maybe we can check that out, look in the tropics, because we're going to have an active tropical weather season coming up this fall. So there's the Atlantic right there, and we've got a couple of waves moving through here, and that's going to be kind of a potent area for development. Here's the NHT forecast. We've already got Tropical Storm Harvey coming up on the, is that the Windward Islands? I've got to check on that. I keep forgetting if it's Windward or, I think that's what it is. Okay, and then we've got a couple of these other waves out here. 5-day forecast is very active. And this wave right here, this corridor, that's going to probably take a prominent position in the forecasts after this eclipse later next week as that approaches the east coast there. So 70% chance of cyclone formation there, and that's moving west-northwestward at 20 miles an hour there. So pretty active there in the Atlantic, and it's only mid-August, and we've got September and October to go, and September is actually when we hit the warmest temperatures on the sea surface there, right around September 6th or 7th. So we are looking at certainly an active season coming up here. Ron Chalfant in Southern California says, nice out there in Southern California, up in the mountains, 70s. I guess, is that near Big Bear where you're at? Ryan talking about that large, massive tropical wave, 600 miles east of Dominican Republic. John Mann looking forward to the eclipse forecast. Sound and stars here also, so yeah, we will check that out. Burl H, ADW, Kevin McKinney, Michael Burrell 13, Sue M, Fun with Tech, Sagan's Run, dried up DeWitt County, Texas, down there around the Victoria area. Little discussion already about the 2024 eclipse, and yeah, that 2024 eclipse, that's going to be tracking pretty much right up from West Texas up into the eastern Great Lakes area. And of course, southern Missouri, they're going to get another show coming up here. So that's only 7 years from now. Sarah Wood looking for 90% coverage on Monday. Ryan Toomey's driving up to Asheville Friday. Lesser Antilles, thank you, Ryan. And Sagan's run putting in an order for hurricanes. We need the rain, nice 10 to 15 inches. And Ron, 30 miles west of Big Bear, 4,600 foot elevation. Okay. So now we're going to start talking about what's going to be happening in this big run-up to the eclipse weather. Well, we've got an upper-level ridge moving in. There it is right there. The patterns are progressing from west to east. I think we've finally gotten rid of that omega block that's kind of pushed north into the Arctic, as we just saw. Quick look at the satellite. This is the water vapor imagery, and this is showing basically how much water vapor there is in the mid and upper parts of the troposphere. So this satellite is very sensitive to moisture above like 8 to 10,000 feet. And I've noticed this weird little pattern out here near Cuba. Looks almost like a little bit of a hurricane there, but this is actually kind of a dry pocket moving through here. Kind of see that darker color there? That's an area of dry conditions. So as that moves into Florida, that should shut down some of the thunderstorm activity a little bit. But right behind it, pretty good wave coming in here from the east. Now, as far as the U.S. here, we've got northwesterly flow across the northern plains, so that's kind of good for the eclipse weather. But we've still got 3 more days to go here. So let's start taking a look at some of the forecasts. This is a chart here we use to look at dynamics. This is 500 millibar heights and vorticity. So this is showing how much curvature and how much shear there is, shear and curvature in the airflow. So right in this area here, if we were able to put a propeller in the flow right there, the propeller would spin kind of like that. So this is kind of a useful tool because we can use this to find waves moving through the flow. So we've got one short wave right there, a very weak one in this region right here, and a very strong wave up in the... I've got mail. Okay. My kid heading off to town there, running some errands, so that's what that's about. Okay, so let's check out the forecast here. There's that northwesterly flow that's going to bring in some drier air aloft into the northern plains. And then we come up to Saturday, continuing that northwesterly flow, which is good. That's bringing in some drier air. We kind of want that for good visibility on Wednesday. But the fly in the ointment is going to be this trough out in the west coast here. So that's going to start turning the flow around to the southwest here going into Sunday and Monday, which means all this thunderstorm activity we have in Arizona. Let me show that to you real quick. Yeah, you see those these storms in Mexico, those are going to start sneaking northward, and that means that with this southwesterly flow, we're going to be bringing some of that debris up north towards the eclipse path, which is in that area right there. Okay, so let's look at some of the longer range models here. What I'll go ahead and do is show you the deterministic GFS forecast. That's about the best product we have for our eclipse here. This chart here, 200 millibars, this is up at about 40,000 feet. Let me get that centered for you. Up the top, this shows you when it's valid for. This is a UTC or Zulu time in London. Okay, so Friday going into Saturday, you can see that ridge moving through the North Plains. And then this is where the flow starts changing a little bit. This is on Sunday morning. See, we're getting that troughing on the west coast, starting to get the flow around to the southwest. And we're digging that trough on in, which is not very good for the Rockies area. And then we get to the eclipse time. Okay, so this is 1 p.m. on Monday. So we've got a pretty deep southwesterly flow across the central U.S. And a very good rule of thumb for forecasting upper level clouds is you pick out the trough like this, then you find the ridge. Okay, so there's a ridge right there, and then you find the jet stream. Okay, that's pretty easy to pick out. See that blue color right there? That's wind speed. Okay, so there's the jet location. So the rule of thumb here is that we're going to be looking for clouds along and to the south of that jet and downstream from the trough and upstream from that ridge. So probably something like that is going to be going on at the time of the eclipse. And this is mostly cirrus. So there's probably going to be some breaks in there. I wouldn't get too concerned about Nebraska there. Also, further to the west, here in Idaho and Wyoming, a little bit of troughing. This is cooler upper temperatures. So that's going to mean convection over the mountains. Thunderstorms going up early, like showers over the mountain peaks. So you want to stay away from the mountains, kind of stay in the valleys in Wyoming. I think Casper will probably be okay there. Pretty good trough right here. So Idaho Falls, out in that area, Twin Falls. Trying to remember the town names. This whole area, it's going to be problematic in the mountains, but like I said, the valleys probably looking okay, and Oregon, I think, will be in good shape too. However, we're also going to be seeing moisture streaming northward, and we have to look at the low-level charts for that. So let's do that. And I think I'll bring you to the precipitable water chart. So this is a measure of the moisture in the atmosphere. This is Friday. And what you'll see here is going into the weekend, lots of tropical moisture surging northward from Texas and Oklahoma. Going Friday into Saturday. See, now it's making a push northward. This is Sunday. And there's that push right there, Sunday evening into Kansas along Interstate 35. And that's probably going to feed an area of storms in Nebraska and Iowa. Now, it's not too clear where those storms are going to be. I'm thinking maybe eastern Nebraska for Sunday evening and possibly moving into Iowa later on Monday. Okay, we're to the end of that run. The latest this NAM run goes is through Monday morning. So we'll have to look at some other products for that. Here's the GFS, and this will show you the flow setting up. In the Great Plains, you can see this southerly flow here, the gradient coming in from the south. High pressure over the Midwest, low pressure in Kansas. So we're going to have the jet stream, or not the jet stream, a little bit of a low-level jet starting to get started there in Kansas on Sunday. See that gradient right there, and feeding an area of thunderstorms, the model going for northeastern Nebraska on Sunday night. Now, these are MCSs. They do tend to thrive during the overnight hours around midnight, and then they do start shutting down. So it looks like this MCS moves into Iowa, according to the GFS. And then it's fallen apart there, and then we see a little area of showers there in eastern Kansas. So that I'm not too sure about. I think we are going to see a lot of tropical activity there in Arkansas. This is a little bit less clear here in Kansas. However, we will have a debris field across this area, so I think there are going to be broken to overcast clouds there in the Iowa and Minnesota area. I'm looking for probably a little bit of clearing out to the west, so I would try to think about going west if you can. Things looking good out in the Rockies and Great Basin. And looks like most of the thunderstorm activity in the southeast is going to be confined to the Gulf Coast area right there. You can see the effect of the surface high right there, bringing dry air southward. The mountains are going to be kind of risky. I'm telling you that. I would prefer to go into Virginia or Kentucky rather than be in the Appalachians. But we shall see. There's dry air up to the north there. Now, another way we can assess the moisture is with the dew point. So we'll run this forward. Saturday, Sunday, and you can see the moisture surging northward, feeding these thunderstorms up here Sunday night in northeast Nebraska. At the same time, you can see the dry air out in the Carolinas. There's dry air advection coming in. See, we go from this on Sunday night to this on Monday at the time of the eclipse. So a little bit of dry air through this region, dew points in the upper 50s, so that'll help kind of keep some of the we were looking for a good chance of rain in this area earlier during the week, but the models have kind of backed off on that. Okay, another product we can look at is the ensembles, the GEFS. So what I'm going to do here is go to the College of DuPage site, go to Weather Analysis Tools, Numerical Models, and there's the Global Ensemble Forecast System. So I'm going to click on Continental U.S., and I think a valuable product here is precipitation, ensemble, precipitation type. And these are different iterations of the models, they're called perturbations. They're running these with slightly different conditions, and we're looking at different solutions here. So if we run this up to the eclipse time, 96 hours, you can see all the different possibilities here for weather. And we can see a lot of consistency here with precipitation in Minnesota. A lot of these panels are showing that. There's another one. There's another one. And the other problem area looks like that's going to be Arkansas. There's a lot of consistency with something going on there with that strong moist air advection. Okay, so what's the forecast? These are some of the parameters I was looking at yesterday. How has that changed? Let's see here. Let's go to some of the relative humidity charts here. Give me just a second here. These relative humidity charts you see here on the left, this is pivotalweather.com. These are useful for forecasting stratiform type clouds where we have dynamic lift, like where I was pointing out near where that jet is. I'm going to go to 200 millibars. Now I hope this doesn't kill the stream. Let me see if I can shut that off. Now that's bringing up all the different, I'm trying to just load only the products that we need here. I think that works out pretty well there. Okay, let's go up to the eclipse time. We're looking at relative humidity up at about 40,000 feet. This is going to be cirrus. And this is showing some of that cloud just south of the low-level jet, or the upper-level jet here. So you can see from El Paso to southern Kansas, that's going to be the main problem area. And yesterday we had been looking at Colorado being in the path of some of that, and northern Kansas. And you can see that we've kind of backed off from that and kind of pushed that to the south a little bit. So that's good for visibility in Nebraska, because that's been my main worry, upper level cirrus layers associated with that jet. So that leaves only debris fields from Colorado convection and I'm not too sure we're going to have too much of that there. And you can see the model there going for very little convective debris. So Nebraska definitely looking good there. Missouri is going to be more of a problem, you can see here. So that's going to be south of that jet, and that's in an area of moist advection coming up from the Gulf. And things looking a little bit better for Tennessee and Carolinas right there. Okay, we'll check out a couple more charts before we move on real quick. This is the 18,000 foot relative humidity. This is kind of like the mid-levels. This here is probably more associated with that convection the model was going with earlier. So you do have to be kind of careful how you use these charts. I'm looking mostly on these charts here for stratiform type fields. Because the convection, the thunderstorms, we just don't know where those are going to be exactly just yet. And then as we go lower to 10,000 feet and 5,000, we pick up more of the moist advection coming up from the south. So I think things are looking pretty good for Nebraska. Missouri, I think, is looking kind of iffy at this point. But we're going to do kind of an extended workup tomorrow and look at things. And I think we'll have a much better picture because that's going to be coming into the 72-hour range there. Okay, let me take a look at chat here and see what we got going on. Got Sue M. and Sarah Wood, both there in Indiana. Anyone had pets act weird during Eclipse? That's a good question. Concerned about pets freaking out Monday. I think the pets will be fine as long as nobody's shooting off fireworks or anything like that. Werewolves might come out. Yeah, you got to be worried about the werewolves, definitely. Ray Woody joining us, Manchese in British Columbia. No more smoke. That's definitely good. We've seen the smoke kind of dispersing over Washington, and let's look at the smoke on the polar orbiter imagery. This is aerosol optical depth that we're looking at here. You can see the smoke. That was a big concern about a week ago. That's dispersed, and now we're seeing that over Manitoba and the Canadian prairies. Here comes the state outlines. So here's Montana coming up. So it looks like mostly Montana and southern prairies are under the effect of the smoke. And I guess that's going to continue dispersing, but that is kind of a concern where this is going to end up. I don't think it's going to be a big problem, but I don't know. Maybe we can take a look at the high split model. Why don't we do that and see where the smoke is going to end up on Eclipse Day? Okay, to do a trajectory model, we just go to NOAA. You can do this yourself. High split. And this is going to go to the Air Resources Laboratory. Let me get a fix on where this smoke is. So we're going to predict where the smoke is going to end up on Eclipse Day. Okay, it looks like it's concentrated around Calgary, right around this area here. Okay, so what we do is we run the high split model, the trajectory model right there, forecast trajectories. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the GFS because most of these models here are short-term models that we're looking at. Okay, for location, we're going to go to Calgary. That's going to be CYYC. Okay, that's looking good right there. We're going to do a forward trajectory. And we're going to pick a bunch of different levels. I'm not too sure exactly what layer the smoke is at. We might have to look at PIREPs for that kind of thing, but I'm just going to put in, I'm going to guess maybe 2,000 meters. And then we'll do 4 kilometers and 6 kilometers. Okay, and we'll run this out to 180 hours. Looks good. Actually, I'm going to end this at the eclipse time. That's going to be about 96 hours. And let's run that and see what happens. So now we are generating the trajectory. Looks like it's already finished. So the parcel is at 2, 4, and 6 kilometers over Calgary. Where are those going to end up? It looks like they are heading to the Great Lakes area. The highest level trajectory, that's heading into Missouri and Kansas. However, because it hasn't moved very much, I think that this is based kind of in the mid-levels. So maybe this red one is what I would go with here. So I think we're going to just see the smoke continue dispersing away from the eclipse path, which is definitely good news. But we'll check that also tomorrow and see what we're looking at. And this is the forecast I had yesterday. And I haven't updated this yet. I will update this tomorrow, so you want to check back for the webcast tomorrow, and I'm going to do kind of a full update here, but I think this is pretty much right on. I would probably move this cloud layer here maybe a little bit further south, and maybe a little bit more concerned for Missouri there, I think. Otherwise, I might back off on this cloud just a little bit. Other than that, things are looking pretty good, pretty much right on with the forecast. Okay, I think that's about all I got for tonight. I appreciate you all watching, and please join us tomorrow, 8 o'clock, and get our music going, and we will see you then. Okay, take care and have a good evening. And we'll cross our fingers for the eclipse.